There is no mystery about what goes into Jack Daniel's whiskey. The popular drink has been around for 151 years, and its recipe is on the company's website. But a story about how Jack Daniel began his distillery is only now gaining traction. Michelle Miller traveled to Tennessee to learn how a man named Nearest Green helped make the brand a household name. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning. You seem to know a lot about whiskey.
I do know a little bit about whiskey.
Uh-oh. Well, good morning. Well, some of the first clues about Nearest Green were in Jack Daniel's official biography, published back in 1967. Green was mentioned in this book about 50 times. Then his name seemed to disappear until one woman helped discover the truth at the heart of how Jack Daniel came to make whiskey.
It's important to set the record straight because anyone who accomplished something like Nearest did should be honored.
What Nearest Green, a slave, did was teach Jack Daniel how to make whiskey.
It was on the cover of the New York Times International Edition. It was possible that an African American was behind Jack Daniels, and it's never been spoken about until now.
For author Fawn Weaver, finding the proof of Green's legacy has become a passion bordering on obsession.
This is my research room.
Over the past year, Weaver's collected a library of documents, letters, and pictures, hoping to parse the truth from folklore.
Finally, one of the elders in the community, and she says, well, you know, his name wasn't really Nearest. Well, his name was Nathan, and he's from Maryland. The oldest letter here is from 1898.
After digging for over 2,500 hours and speaking to more than 100 relatives, it started to come together.
I got so excited.
Debbie Staples, a great-granddaughter of Green's, had heard the tales of whiskey from her grandmother.
I knew she had no reason to make up a story like that.
In the late 1850s, Jack Daniel, an orphan, started working for a wealthy landowner and whiskey distiller named Dan Call.
This is where Jack Daniel grew up.
Okay. Call teamed Daniel with Green, one of his slaves and his main whiskey man.
And then after slavery, he started his own company, and the person he went to first was his mentor. And he did not see race as a barrier. She began pulling out all this research.
Weaver soon found evidence in black and white. A 1972 article in the Tennessee Historical Quarterly listed Nearest Green as Jack Daniel's first head distiller. Mark McCallum is the president of Jack Daniel's Brands.
When we've known and understood the weight of this story, all I can offer is anything we can do to continue to honor the name of Nearest, we will do.
The company first acknowledged Green as Jack Daniel's mentor last year.
There was an enormous amount of blowback.
Such as?
It ranged from some very positive commentary on the story to some very vitriolic. It was a very tense time in America as well. Then we were into that month or two leading up to the US presidential election. But I thought the last thing that America needed at that time was for Jack Daniel to come out again after all this commentary and raise up this story again.
People had been saying this for a very long time, but there was not one shred of proof. And so if you have a story that you know will be controversial, because most people don't listen to the whole story.
What do they hear?
Immediately, Jack Daniel had slaves.
By all accounts, he did not. It is believed that Daniel opened his distillery in 1866, a year after the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. And working with Daniel helped to make Green and his children wealthier than many of their white neighbors.
These are our master distillers.
Today, Green is mentioned in tours of the distillery.
That's Jack Daniel himself, and this is his crew back in the early 1900s.
There's no known photograph of Nearest Green. But this is his son George, sitting right next to Jack Daniel, at a time when black employees were often relegated to the back. 3 living Green descendants still work at the distillery, including Staples.
It means a lot to me to know that now the world will know. Our country is divided. I know there's a lot of hate going, but you know, to be in the South and to have a relationship with someone that's, you would think that would never happen.
Despite the deep racial divides of the American South in the 19th century, an improbable friendship brewed, one at the heart of a quintessentially American brand.
For me, this project ends when I can go anywhere around the world and say Nearest Green, and people know who he is. I have never lived in this type of climate of race. And when I look at this story, this is the one story that's given me hope through everything else.
Weaver hopes to honor Green's legacy by building a memorial park, republishing Jack Daniel's biography, and then creating this new whiskey. It's called Uncle Nearest, and the proceeds will go toward a scholarship fund for the Green's living descendants and to support the Nearest Green Foundation's various efforts. There is so much about that relationship between these two men that just astounded me. And one of the things that came out of this story was how Jack Daniel treated his black and white workers. And he paid them essentially, according to Fawn Weaver and according to the distillery, he paid them the same wage for the same work.
Wow.
And
back
it was,
then,
yes, back then.
That
And it was based on tenure.
Wow.
How long you had been with the company.
I so admire Fawn Weaver. I'm thinking, boy, if you needed an investigation, we need to call her with the pretty eyes.
I know. Well,
all the work that she's done, that's an amazing story.
She's a passionate young woman.
Yeah, I
no
see
wonder
that.
her dad was the author of Love Child from Motown.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Connection.
Such an incredible story. An
Can you
incredible
buy this? Is this available?
Yes, it is. It is
right.
available. So go
Yeah.
out and take a
She's
sip.
terrific. What we learned from
available
spending
right
time
there,
with
Len.
history.
Right
yeah,
there.
she's terrific. Thank you,
Yeah, it
Michelle,
was
for that
great.
story. Really,
Really good.
really beautifully done.
Thank you.